Little Leiland James Corkill was born in England. He was full of light and smiles. He had time to see Christmas and meet his first birthday. He was cared for by many people and seemed to be truly loved by everyone. Unfortunately, this story has a terrible ending. At the beginning of this case, we will go back to the origins, to the acquaintance of Laura and Scott Castle. The fateful meeting took place during Christmas celebrations in 2005. Their relationship blossomed into marriage in 2007, after which the couple settled in the small British town of Barrow-in-Furness, Cumbria, in northwest England, with a population of 55,000 residents. The couple passionately dreamed of having children, but medical examinations revealed Laura's infertility. This news caused deep depression, which led the woman to leave her job at a nursing home. The only solution for the couple became the decision to adopt a child. Their desire was to take custody of a newborn, specifically to raise them from birth. The Castle family began the complex process of preparing the necessary documents. They went through all stages, from interviews to special training. Social workers thoroughly examined not only the potential parents themselves but also their entire environment, relatives and friends. At this time, in another town in the county, Whitehaven, another woman also named Laura was preparing for the birth of her son. The baby's room was newly decorated. She had even chosen a name, Leiland James Corkill. Laura Corkill was a woman with a very difficult fate. Laura already knew what it was like to have a child taken away by social services. She had experienced domestic violence a few years before, but her children were taken away from her a few weeks after she asked for help to get her abusive partner out of the house. Her life went downhill when Laura became pregnant with Leiland James. It was a moment of hope, a time to put her troubled past behind her. She was in a good place and was supported by a group called Ashdreer of Women Out West, an organization that helps women who have experienced domestic and sexual violence. The first social worker showed up at Laura Corkill's house when she was 22 weeks pregnant. She appeared to be happy with the preparations made for the baby at home, but Laura was still cautious and asked directly if she would be able to keep her baby. The woman reassured her that there wasn't any reason the baby would be taken into care. The other social workers who came later were more reserved and detached. Leiland James was born on December 21, 2019. Mother and child bonded immediately. Laura describes her son as perfect. The woman was fascinated by her son's big, bright eyes. Laura was happy, full of joy. She was looking forward to bringing her baby boy home. But 48 hours after his birth, Leiland James was taken away. The midwife who helped deliver him came to tell Laura that a social worker was standing by his crib and was going to take him away. Laura went and met the social worker but was told that the papers had been sent to her solicitor. Leiland James spent his first 8 months under the care of Charlotte Day. According to her testimony, the baby was extremely cheerful and smiley at an early age. Leiland James was diagnosed with pyloric stenosis, a digestive system disorder. After successful surgery, the baby's health normalized. He began gaining weight well and showing normal development over the next year. Laura tried to get her son back for the first months of Leiland James's life. Laura was able to see him at the council's contact center. She took a lot of pictures, and in these pictures, she and Leiland James look very happy. Laura saw her son 4 times a week for an hour and a half a day. The last picture in her album does not convey her mother's pain. That day, she held her son in her arms for the last time in her life. On August 22, 2020, Leiland James was officially placed with his foster family, to the Castle couple, for the purpose of adoption. Social services provided preliminary approval for temporary custody of the child, reserving the right of supervision to make the final decision regarding adoption. Little Land's story up to this point had been even more challenging. Charlotte visited the family for some time, helping them adjust to parental duties. Over the next 5 months, the couple worked on securing permanent custody. However, the situation developed tragically. Laura experienced serious difficulties accepting the role of mother. She didn't feel an emotional connection with the child. The baby's crying caused excessive irritation in her, which she couldn't handle. The woman began regularly losing her temper and shouting at the baby. Instead of calming Leiland James, this only intensified the child's crying, which provoked Laura to physical violence. She frequently complained about the baby's behavior to her husband during his work shifts. In September 2021, her messages began including offensive characterizations of the child. She called him fat, lazy, and devil spawn. The woman admitted to physical violence against the baby, which she carried out to stop his crying. She described her inability to control her aggression while beating the child. The couple even considered returning Leiland James to the care system but rejected this idea for several reasons. The main arguments against such a decision were the grandparents' attachment to their grandson, fear of losing the possibility of future adoption of other children, and fear of social condemnation. They decided to wait out the difficult period of early childhood, hoping the situation would improve with time. During communications with social services, the couple openly discussed the problem of lacking an emotional connection with the child, but they were only telling part of the truth, trying to hide the depth of the problem. Social workers began expressing doubts about the appropriateness of granting permanent custody and increased supervision of the family. Another check was planned after the Christmas holidays. The tragedy occurred earlier on January 6, 2021, at 6 o'clock in the morning. Scott returned home from his night shift, tired. After work, he went straight to bed. 2 hours later, Laura woke him up, reporting that the baby had fallen from the couch. The child was unconscious with labored breathing. Attempts to provide first aid proved unsuccessful. Around 8:30 in the morning, Laura called emergency services at 999, reporting the child's critical condition. The ambulance team urgently transported the baby to Alder Hey Hospital in Liverpool. Medical examination revealed extensive brain trauma, including swelling and hemorrhage. Despite all efforts by medical staff, Leiland James died the next day shortly after his first birthday. Laura Corkill and her mother, the biological grandmother of Leiland James, went to the hospital as soon as they were notified of the accident. Unfortunately, when Laura Corkill was able to get to the hospital, her son was already dead. Medical staff did not allow the mother to touch the child because an investigation into his death had already been launched. Medical workers questioned the version about falling from the couch, as the nature of the injuries didn't match such a scenario. Laura Castle changed her testimony, claiming the child had fallen from her arms. The autopsy revealed a complex of severe injuries, including serious damage to the head, spine, and neck. Experts concluded that the injuries were caused by a powerful impact of the head against a hard surface, possibly a wall or table, and intensive shaking. The force required for such brain damage was extremely high. Experts categorically rejected the possibility of such injuries occurring from a fall from a couch, comparing them to the consequences of a serious car accident. Multiple injuries to Leiland James' face and ears were found, characteristic of slaps, pinching, and poking. Damage around the mouth and lips indicated forceful bottle feeding. During questioning, Laura Castle confessed to shaking the child, explaining her actions as attempts to calm unbearable crying, while claiming the head impact against the couch was accidental. She showed remorse, insisting her actions were unintentional. After her arrest, she was charged with child abuse. Analysis of the couple's correspondence showed that, although Scott wasn't involved in his wife's or Leiland James' death, he never condemned Laura's violent actions toward the child. Instead, he assured her of his unconditional love and support. Law enforcement conducted an investigation into the care services activities. The investigation showed regularity in family checks by social services. During visits, the child always appeared well cared for and happy, without visible signs of injuries or negligent care. The house was maintained in proper condition, which gave no cause for concern. Neighbors testified to regular instances of child crying and mother screaming. On the fatal morning, they heard the usual pattern: child crying, Laura screaming, then a loud bang, after which silence fell. At the court hearing, Laura Corkill, Leiland James' biological mother, testified. She characterized her son's killer as a monster and told about her unsuccessful attempts to maintain contact with the child, which were blocked by the Castle couple due to their selfish desire to maintain custody of the unwanted child. Laura Corkill also expressed claims against social services, which had assured her of the child's safety. She expressed confidence that the tragedy could have been avoided if Leiland James had stayed with her. The previous guardians, who cared for Leiland James until he was 8 months old, expressed deep grief over the loss. They recalled successfully managing care for the sick child, despite his crying due to pain. According to Charlotte Day, the baby needed attention which he likely didn't receive in the Castle family. She noted that the child cried only due to physical discomfort, stomach pains, forced feeding, or being in a car seat or cradle. Charlotte admitted that this tragedy shook her faith in her calling to raise children, creating fear of trusting potential adopters. At trial, Scott showed emotional shock, telling about his grief and devastation. He admitted that until the end, he believed in his wife's innocence. The prosecutor raised questions about the predictability of the tragedy given the couple's violent actions. Scott denied any prediction of the tragic outcome. The prosecutor read the couple's correspondence on the eve of the boy's death, where, in response to Laura's complaints about the child's crying, Scott responded with a suggestion to give a good hard slap. The man tried to justify his message as a joke, emphasizing the presence of an emoji. He denied personal use of force against Leiland James when questioned about encouraging violence from his wife through approving messages about her maternal qualities. Scott rejected such accusations, insisting that Laura was a good mother. He claimed he never noticed signs of violence on Leiland James' body during daily care. Scott talked about the couple's unpreparedness for the real difficulties of child care, frequent crying, night wakings, and food refusal. According to him, although Leiland James seemed not to accept them, there were moments of joy and closeness that justified their decision to wait for the situation to improve. Scott shared his unrealized dreams about the future with Leiland James, particularly about playing football together after starting school. With tears in his eyes, he spoke about Laura as the love of his life, expressing disbelief in her lies. At this moment, the defendant showed strong emotional distress. Laura acknowledged using physical punishment on Leiland James, explaining this through her own experience of corporal punishment in childhood. She confirmed using excessive force while shaking the child that morning. When asked about hiding the truth from medical professionals, which could potentially have saved the baby's life, she cited fear of consequences and shame. The defendant pleaded guilty to manslaughter, explaining her actions as a loss of control due to unbearable child crying. According to her version, the head trauma occurred from an accidental hit against the couch's armrest during shaking. However, the forensic expert refuted the possibility of such serious head injuries from impact against a couch. Laura's version didn't find support in court. The expert thoroughly explained the phenomenon of shaken baby syndrome as one of the leading causes of infant mortality among babies. He emphasized that such syndrome isn't necessarily a result of intentional violence. Similar injuries can occur during careless play, for example, when adults throw a child too high or shake them abruptly, as well as in traffic accidents. Annual statistics in Great Britain record about 100 infant deaths from this syndrome. In Leiland James' case, experts determined that the injuries arose not only from shaking but also from a strong impact by a blunt object to the head. On May 25, 2022, the court found the woman guilty of manslaughter and child abuse. 38-year-old Laura Corkill received a life sentence with the possibility of parole after 18 years. The defense expressed disagreement with the court's decision, filing appeals based on the defendant's severe psycho-emotional state. The attorneys emphasized her inability to cope with child crying and subsequent mental disorder. The defense also appealed to the presence of positive moments in the parents' relationship with Leiland James. Additionally, they noted Laura's difficult situation in prison, where she experiences abuse and the threat of her marriage dissolution. All charges were eventually dropped against her. 35-year-old husband Scott Martin Birch, Director of Children and Families at Cumberland Council, one of two authorities to replace Cumbria County Council, told the inquest lessons have been learned from the case and changes made. A year and a half after Leiland James' murder, Laura Corkill says no one from the council has visited her to say sorry or called to apologize. If he had been allowed to go home with her, she says he would still be alive today. In the cemetery near Laura Corkill's home, there is a small headstone. The words, "Gone but never forgotten," are etched alongside Leiland James' name and those of his living siblings. The children, taken from their mother years ago, rest in peace. Little angel Leiland James, sadly, the system has once again proven itself to be flawed. It's a shame that, in their phantom pursuit of a better life for the baby, they failed to recognize a potentially dangerous woman. I just wanted to say a big thank you to everyone who watched this video all the way through. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this case in the comments, and please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Your support means the world to me and gives me the motivation to keep making new and interesting investigations for you, my wonderful viewers. Thank you all so much.